on the people who are actually going to play your game.
What's happening there, Alex? Sorry, Maren.
It's the problem with living in the city. And right next to where I am, there's like this. Basically, they do parties like literally right outside my door.
All right, but anyway, sorry for interrupting you, Maren. I thought someone was getting
all
killed.
Good. I heard this sound in the background, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is where dead-end marketing campaigns go to die."
Oh.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast, a show on the human stories behind indie game development. Speaking to you today is your loyal indie diarist and host, Anthony L. Wolf, writer, narrative designer, and senior content manager for social media, as you guys already know. This is a very special episode. It's an indie game marketing session on burning questions that I recorded and live streamed exclusively for my Discord community, and now I've just packaged it all together and put it into an episode for you guys in the normal feed. But if you do want to not miss out on these events in the future, do join the Discord community. You can go to theindiediarist.com and join the community from there. You'll find a very handy invite link that you can click. Also, before we go on, I want to shout out to my amazing patrons, which at the time of recording this are Fishbump, Zagini, and Angelissa, and Peleg, who's just literally subscribed now. They're all amazing human beings supporting me in every little way they can. And if you too want to support the show, you can go to theindiediarist.com and find a handy link to the Patreon page. Now, without further ado, let's get into this episode, which is going to be a very interesting one on how to handle marketing as an indie game developer.
First of all, welcome everybody who's listening to this episode afterwards, or whoever's listening to this session live. Welcome to this very, very, very special episode of the Indie Diarist podcast, which is a live session streamed exclusively to my Discord members and in my Discord community. For this one, I wanted to do something really special and bring together some of the biggest personalities in the indie game marketing scene right now. And Alex, no, I'm joking.
You can go home, buddy. Yeah. Just pack it up.
No, but leave. Alex is, I'll let you guys all introduce yourselves, but these guys are all excellent marketers from the indie game marketing scene, everybody coming from different backgrounds and from different time zones. Because if you are seeing this video at some point in the future, if I will ever upload it to my YouTube channel, you will see that Maren is in complete darkness. I'm in somewhat light. Jacky is in somewhat light as well. And Alex is in afternoon light. So basically, we're all tuning in. There's daylight coming through, definitely. But we are all in different parts of the world, which I think is going to make this one even more fun because there will be different levels of energy during this chat, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, so what I want to do is just start with a little introduction of you guys. So let's just do a round of introductions. For those who may not know me, I am Anthony L. Wolf, host and indie diarist, the loyal diarist of the show, which is a show on the human stories behind indie game development. And I love bringing together people, bringing together marketers, just connecting the community, just like is happening now on my Discord server, which is really amazing. And the show has been running for just not couple months. It's been running since January 2024, but you can see from the Discord server that there is a lot of love already, and that makes me very proud. What about you all? I guess we will go in a clockwise order depending on what I see on screen. I don't know if it's the same for you, but next to me is Maren right now, then there's Jacky, and then there's Alex, so we could just go in this order. So Maren, over to you. Just feel free to say a few things about yourself and what you do.
Sure. Hi, I'm Maren Sunderland. I live in Tucson, Arizona, and I own an indie game social media marketing agency. We specialize in helping you guys out where it hurts the most.
Perfect. And over to you, Jacky.
Hi, my name is Jacky, and my angle towards marketing may be a little unusual. I wouldn't describe myself as a marketer per se. So rather as an artist and a computer scientist, actually living in the space between technology and artistry. I'm also a mentor at the IGDX Academy and the founder of Gentleland, which is an art creation and consulting agency. And we really focus on helping game developers all around the world, from very early initial idea to then launch Kickstarter and pitch deck.
Perfect. And lastly, you, Alex?
Yes, hello, I'm Alex. First off, and thank you for setting this up and for having me on. Like, that's like fantastic. I started the IndieXP about a year and a half ago. This is on the back of being an editor for a gaming journalist website for about 6 years. Learned a lot as a gaming journalist, and then I thought I'd apply a lot of those practices to my own business. So, which is where I set that up, and I actually quit my job like 2 months ago to do this full time. So it's pretty big, but it's thank you. But it is just me at the moment. Very much just me in my little office space and trying to help out as many indie developers as I can.
Yeah, like helping from a garage. That's that's the vibe I'm getting there. Amazing. Yeah, and kudos to you for the bravery to quit your full-time job and embarking on this. I know it's no, I'm sure it's going to go super well. So yeah, well, I guess this will be just a very casual discussion between us, although we will answer some pretty in-depth questions from my community and people around the web that have reached out to with interest. To what we can do, I think, to start is, as we were discussing in private already with Jacky and you all, it may be useful to just set the scene a little bit and talk about the indie game marketing landscape and what it is right now, and maybe introduce the concept of marketing to people who may be entirely new to this. And I expect that there will be a lot of solo devs out there who will listen to this maybe afterwards and be like, I have absolutely no idea where to start. So what are your thoughts first? Do you want to just jump in and say something? I know it's a very broad question to ask to begin with, but that's because I want to see what your first thoughts are about the indie game marketing landscape and how people can get started. Mostly, so over to you.
Yeah, I can go first if you like. I think indie game marketing, like you said, it is a very broad topic and it is a very scary topic, especially for developers. If it's just themselves or if it's just a couple of them, it can be a very scary thing to approach. I guess the main thing, like if you're starting off, the main thing is to lay down the foundations. That's going to get you the best results to begin with. So making sure your Steam page is well optimized and your messaging is clear. I think that's the first and foremost thing you need to concentrate on. There's a lot of questions which we were privy to prior, and like we can definitely get into the more nitty gritty. But I think I always think of marketing as like a tree. Like you need to plant it in good soil so that it grows better and grows. Has more growth to it. So you need to make sure you plant it in good soil by laying down a solid foundation first and foremost.
Right, I think that's a good image. That's good imagery to start. And I know Jacky and Maren, you want to chip in with your thoughts.
I feel like what I see a lot is that there's a lot of misconception around what marketing actually is. I see people equal it to promotion, where it's just, like feeling like a salesperson and then feeling very negative about it. While promotion is only like 10%, I would say, or well, the later part of the marketing tree, so to speak, as Alex just said. And it's such a multifaceted process that just starts already with the product, with where you're promoting it to begin with, so the place you're in. So and also, of course, your audience, like your favorite player. And I say this very mindfully as like your favorite player, because the concept of a target audience can already be quite difficult to grasp for some, not only just from a demographic point of view, but also from a psychographic point of view, right? So what are the thoughts of the people that I'm trying to reach and connect with?
Absolutely, yeah. To play off of that, definitely. One thing that you can do for yourself as an indie dev, if you're just starting out, if you're starting from zero and you don't know anything about marketing, do yourself a favor and meet one of the people who you feel would play your game and love it, and just sit down and talk to them, human being on human being, and talk to them about your game and hear what they have to say. Because when you establish that fundamental human connection, it will bolster the passion that you have for your game, and it will remind you why you're bending over backwards trying to figure this all out anyway. And you can carry that into marketing by remembering the connection that you were able to make with that player, right? If you are able to find them. If not, they can be your imaginary friend too. That'll carry you pretty far. But yeah, really familiarizing yourself with your audience will make you a lot more comfortable in terms of putting yourself out there, because it feels a lot less like screaming into a void, begging people to wishlist your game. And it feels a lot more like asking everybody who is hanging out with you already to check out this thing that they would love.
I think there's already an important theme emerging, which is a lot of people feel like marketing is promotion, is sales, but actually there's a lot more humanity to it than many people think. There's a lot more connection. There's a lot more building that kind of bridge between you and your target audience, and trying to understand who they are and what you can bring to the table, so that they can have a meaningful experience, so they can just stay with you for a long time and be friends together, even if you want to if you want to go down that route. But it's something that I have seen and that I've heard from and personally I've felt myself when I was approaching social media marketing for the first time. Now I'm a full-time social media marketer, writing content for a variety of clients for my full-time job, so unrelated to the Indie Diarist. But the first thing, when I still didn't know anything about social media and marketing in general, I did feel like I had no idea where to start and felt too difficult as an introvert to just get into it. But actually, you can do it once you understand how it works and all the different dynamics that play into understanding your product, audience, and what you're trying to actually tell people. And I think this is something that will come up quite a bit as we now head into the burning questions from the community. It's marketing, and social media marketing especially is not just about broadcasting. It's about connecting with the people that are part of your community, or the people that you want to be part of your community. Yeah, but I think it's a great. We're already setting the scene and the stage pretty well. I think we can go into the core of this session, which is answering questions from people that very kindly send them to us from the community, either in Discord, and I will shout out to every single name who sent the question, which is, of course, we will start with a question from you, Maren. But there were Quivscore, who I think is in the chat, in the audience right now. There's words VCD, Lunar Games, URUK or Uruk, Zboxle from Reddit, I believe, and Shtaikori. There are a lot of people, a lot of amazing users who send their questions through to us, and I will say their name for every single question, but thank you for sending them through, and we will try to answer as many as we can, although there were a lot, so we had to do already a selection and scrap a few. But yeah, so I think to set the stage a little bit more, the core topics for these burning questions that I've identified are: how do you stand out and get noticed by players? What are some actionable tips that you can give an indie game dev who has no idea where to start? And how indie devs can maximize the impact of their marketing with a limited budget or zero budget. So these three topics will kind of repeat themselves throughout these questions, but we will dive into them depending on what the actual question is, and with a bit more detail. So first of all, as an icebreaker, and thank you, Maren, for asking that under the actual original thread, what is your favorite part of games marketing? Because I believe you all will have a different part that you love. So I think we can start from Maren this time and go to Alex. And so I like this thing that we're doing, that we just go clockwise and anti-clockwise. Sure. So yeah.
Having me answer my own question first, as if I was supposed to have an answer prepared for it. Bold. Okay. Let's go. Favorite part of games marketing. It would be I know we just got done talking about bonding with your audience, but hearing feedback, and this is specifically from a community management standpoint, hearing feedback from the community that is not only so pointed, but so individual, like getting that kind of positive feedback and like that cute little story they had about how, your game made their day better or stuff like that. Like knowing that you had an impact on a player's life, like highlight, easy, worth all the trolls on Twitter combined, worth it. Yeah, it just that makes it all worth it, right? Knowing that you did it, right? That you made a difference. Yeah.
And what about you, Jacky?
I feel like game marketing is such a dynamic and creative field, but if I had to choose a favorite aspect, I think it would be watching the game developers that work with us grow their community engagement. So, this is really just building a passionate community around their game. And I think that's incredibly rewarding for them because then it's just like this instant validation and feedback, as Maren also said. And it's not really just about promoting your game, it's about connecting with your players, hearing what they have to say, hearing their feedback, and involving them eventually in the development process in some form by simply just listening to them and seeing the excitement and anticipation of the community. And it's just wonderful to see.
And Alex, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I have always loved video games. I like to say I was born with a controller in my hand, and just the idea, because I know nothing, absolutely nothing about video game development in terms of, the nitty gritty that goes into it. So being able to help in my own unique way is rewarding in and of itself. And just being a part of that process and seeing the growth that comes with not just my efforts, but their efforts as well. And the thing that they have created and they've put their countless hours, blood, sweat, and tears into this product, and it's wonderful to be a part of that journey. And I think and indie developers are definitely very passionate, not to say other developers aren't, but I feel as though there's a huge passion when it comes to indie development, because it's more personal. So you get to be a part of that and see that growth, and that's very rewarding in and of itself.
And I think in line with what the core values of the show are, or what the core mission of the show is, I think the human storytelling element is already coming through, and that's a big part of marketing, as we mentioned, and it will come up again as we keep going through these questions. But so the way I envision this to work is if we all answer, if all three of you answer. Give your own answer to a question, we will be here for hours. So I think the best way to approach this is...
You don't want to be here for 6 hours?
Well, I do, but I'm not sure my friends in the audience will want to. So yeah, I think what we can do is I will ask the question to the room. Whoever wants to chip in first, please go. I will balance things out if I feel like some of you guys are speaking more than others and such, but then the others can chip in for thoughts, for additional thoughts. But I guess some of these questions will make you feel more passionate, some of you guys, and some others will make you feel like, maybe the others can answer this. So so we'll just go with the flow and see what happens. So first question actually is an interesting one that I've heard so many times, and it comes from QuivScore and VCD in my Discord community. I'd like to know how to start things like from zero audience. What's the move here if I have some content to show? Is it worth to go and share stuff on threads for like Screenshot Saturday and stuff like that? Or is that rather detrimental because I feel it's kind of forced? Or would it be better to look for other places like Reddit, for example? So before I hand it over to you, I guess we're back to what you mentioned, Jacky, about first figuring out the best platform where you want to be and your core audience and where that is. So I think we can frame the conversation that way, but I'll leave it to you guys to just answer this in your own way.
Yeah, I would love to answer this because what we don't recommend our devs doing is to start head on into marketing without ever having connected prior with their audience somewhere to have like a real buyer persona in their mind. Because what is a buyer persona? It's basically a person that you maybe know actually directly that would be interested in your game, that would buy your game, where you can almost build it for them. And that can sometimes be yourself, but it is often great if there's another person that you can truly connect with. And yeah, so we always first have them send out surveys just to really find that initial point of connection and lead a few player interviews, and then basically ask them, hey, where are you hanging out? Where are you learning new things? How would you want to be approached around this topic? And that makes it a lot easier because they will simply tell you where you can reach them. And then these questions like, okay, where do I post? Is it on Screenshot Saturday? Is it there? Is it there? They become no-brainers.
Yeah. Any additional thoughts from you guys?
I would definitely agree with Jacky. That's a fantastic places to start, and like she said, it'll just make the process so much easier if you understand your audience and you understand who your target persona is, and that way you can approach your game on a more personal level. Also, I think, like I mentioned previously, it comes down to making sure that you've got your foundation laid correctly, and that kind of goes in part with that, making sure that you're pitching, you've got your pitches correct, and most efficiently prior to that. So making sure that you're not just saying any information about your game. You're not throwing 100 features at your target audience. You've got a very distinct messaging about your game, and you've laid down that foundation. So if anyone comes across your game organically, they'll understand exactly what is unique about your game without you having to say anything.
Yeah. Also, if you're working eventually with publishers or other partners, you want to be very mindful about how you start a conversation about your game. Sometimes it could be worth it to hold off on starting to market your game depending on your network and your opportunities. So there really goes a lot of thought into this, and I feel it's very individual, really depending on your starting point and your position in the industry.
Y'all are so professional, and I totally agree with everything you laid out there. If I had anything to add, it would be if you're at the point where you are prepared to establish your brand as a game and as a business, that also has to involve your professional boundaries. So if you ask your players and they're like, God, I just love scrolling through video game TikToks, but being on TikTok makes you want to lay down in traffic, you need to also respect yourself enough as a professional to draw that line and be like, okay, can we look for a stronger option B? There is no life or death, right? There's no yes or no. There's always an option B that you can probably go with, and they will also, meet you there, right? So definitely establishing those professional and mental boundaries as well, at least when you begin content marketing.
Super Killer says TikTok 100% makes me want to lay down in traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Because if you're, sorry, just quick anecdote, right? Because if your marketing is based off of stuff that you are putting time into and that you're putting yourself into, make it fun. Not saying it has to be all sunshine and rainbows, but don't put yourself in a position where you'll burn out because you hate what you're creating, because that's not why you got into any of this.
And there's another question from Quivsco, which I thought was interesting, but I want to give it a kind of a unique spin. They originally asked, how do creators connect in this space? I'm sure it can't just be from posting to the void or interacting with their content. Actually, what I'd like to know from you guys is, how do you connect with your audience when you're not ready to start doing marketing, as Jacky said? How do you build that first connection? It definitely can't be just from posting to the void or interacting with their content. I'm sure there will be other ways to connect with them. So over to you all.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. It's not about posting and hoping for the best. Building connections really involves patience. It involves being proactive, right? So no one enjoys this one-sided relationship where one is always giving, 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 and the other one is only taking. And the same is something we can observe on social media platforms, where it's, devs asking the entire time without even realizing it, like, hey, how do you like this? Would you like to give me feedback? These are all posts that are not necessarily giving value to someone. In the sense of value is what you get and the price is what you pay for, kind of a conversation. And it's all about engaging with the community, building meaningful relationships. And I would say it comes a lot down to authenticity, of being your true and honest self. And once you know what you want in terms of vision, in terms of purpose, it becomes much, much easier to build these relationships. And then you can also reach out via your existing network, right? You can always say, like, hey, I'm building this thing over here. I'm really passionate about it. And I'm looking for 5 people that want to give me feedback. And then, boom, you already have 5 people in your community, in your network, just to start things off. So you're not starting from scratch.
I'd say my strength would probably be in PR marketing. And reaching out, and that kind of coincides with reaching out to content creators.
Oh, you'll love one of the later questions then.
Oh, yeah. I saw it. I've got a lot to say on that one. PR, yeah, and I love PR marketing because it does get very personal. But you are talking not to developers or anything, but you're talking to the press and the content creators, those who love games and love showing games strictly because they love playing games. So they're basically us. We love playing games as well. So they're like-minded in that way. But for example, when I build my press list and help my clients with that, I don't reach out with cold emails and just throw press releases at them. You need to build a relationship there. It's time consuming. It can result in a lot of rejection, and that can hurt, or not even rejection, just no response. Like they could just not respond, and that tends to be about 70% of people who you reach out to. But you want to make sure you have their consent to reach out to them, because coming from a journalist as well, there's nothing worse than getting thrown a code and expecting content. So you as a developer or a marketer need to understand that their time is also important. So, and they might not like your game, and that's okay, because not every game is right for everyone.
And I think, not to throw shade at anybody, but I think a lot of indie game developers, solo developers or otherwise, they just do that. Like they put a code in an email and they send it off, and then they don't really get a result unless maybe they have a super catchy, unique game that is super polished and such, and feels like it's coming from a AAA studio or a AA studio or something like that. Whereas, as you say, PR is about building relationships, but we will definitely get there.
Okay.
Pretty soon.
I'll hold off for now. I'm excited.
Yeah, hold off your excitement. Yeah. Maren, don't know if you wanted to add anything to this, but
oh my gosh, I'm trying to keep this lickety split. I'm trying to keep this streamlined. You guys nailed it.
Perfect. Right, so a bit more of a practical question from Lunar Games Uruk, and someone from Reddit who asked pretty much the same thing. What kind of content would you recommend that's not too difficult or time-consuming to make, but still effective? Or in other words, where should our main focus and energy be aimed at when it comes to marketing?
Oh, I'll go first. Wait, I'm ready. Wait.
Go.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm ready. I wrote this one down. Ask your audience. Ask them. And if they don't know, then start experimenting.
I would say for time-conscious creators, short and engaging video clips can be incredibly effective. So that could be teaser videos or GIFs. And what you typically want to do is to highlight the most exciting aspects of your game. So this would be typically right in the middle of your GIF, right? So that people don't have to look around for what actually is the key component that you want to sell. So oftentimes we are then talking about the hook of your game. And that is really coming down to, okay, what is that one thing that makes someone's eyes shine and go like, yes, this is amazing, I want to play this, I want to spend some time just figuring out there's some background sound.
Oh, that's me.
Just playing this game basically. Yeah, okay, now it's gone. Kind of like the thing that generates talking points about your game.
I've got both speeding through over here, but that's why sometimes you may hear some background noise from me. But yeah, sorry about that. Great points. And there's another great point that Lente is making in the chat. Better to have a more personalized approach and reach a few people rather than a very boring approach that will reach almost no one. I think that echoes what you guys were saying earlier. It's better to go quality over quantity and just be very targeted and very mindful about the kind of things that you're sharing.
Don't waste time on those who might not be interested.
Yeah.
Let the game speak for itself. If they're not interested, that's okay. Just move on to the next one.
And again, some very practical question from Shtai Corey, who I believe is working on Morganica as a game. That could be their handle on socials. How do you attract more people to Steam? Very broad, I know, but first thoughts.
Yeah, so it does. I feel like this question kind of has a double meaning because in attracting people to Steam, it could mean, like you trying to bring people to your wish list, or actually, like bringing people to the platform. One is completely out of your control, I want to say, in terms of bringing people to Steam. That's a very specific audience you have there. I always like to say, if you're building a game, for example, for toddlers, you're not going to showcase it in an elderly home, for example, because oftentimes that is not where you will find a lot of, so to speak, toddlers. But so you want to be where your audience is, and that you first have to find out. And when it comes to the second kind of part of the question, that is just okay, how do I build my wish list? How do I funnel people towards my Steam capsule? Then there are so many strategies in just how do I build my personal list in terms of newsletters? How do I build my Discord? Can I cross promote with other developers? There's just so much that you can do, ranging from Steam festivals and whatnot.
Yeah, very, very good point with this. Oh, sorry.
No, please, you go.
Sorry, just a quick note. When I saw this question, I thought it was a trick question because the answer is marketing. So I was like, I think they get it. I think, okay, right? Like if we're starting from zero, if you have never, ever learned anything about marketing in your life, I am begging you to open up a Chrome tab and Google the marketing funnel. I'm literally begging you, do it right now. Like seriously, take 10 minutes, look at the marketing funnel, comprehend it, ponder your orb, ponder the funnel. A lot of what you see us doing, like you will see Jacky doing it, you'll see Alex doing it, you'll see myself doing it. You'll start seeing games around you implementing these different strategies because you will start to recognize what it looks like when games are pushing different parts of their funnels, right? So when you're familiar with that, you start to recognize it in other games, and that can be really inspiring. Don't compare yourself because that's toxic, but it can be really inspiring and remind you that everybody's at different stages, right? So you need to figure out where you are as a business and as a game, and use that to bloop kind of funnel people towards your Steam.
Yeah, maybe we can quickly say what a funnel is, because I think for listeners who are not as involved in marketing, that simply in the first step, you basically just want to build awareness about who you are at the beginning. No one even knows that you exist, that you're a thing, so to speak. And the next step is really just like building interest with what you create. So you can even break that down in, like a very simple form. Sometimes you even see it in the shape of a tweet. And then the next step is, how do you build desire around what you're creating? Like making someone want to take an action. And that action can be like the lowest commitment that they can give you. It could be like, hey, just follow along, right? And that is typically the action you want them to take. That is called to action. And then once they took an action and maybe become your player, you can then really, like almost nurture them into becoming your ambassadors, and then really your loyal fan base, right? So that is really what the sales funnel is in detail.
And there's a very interesting quote I can share from Jared J. Tan, who's the community strategist at Devolver Digital now, but he used to be a community manager for Massive Monsters for Cult of the Lamb. He says, "Attention is marketing currency," and I think that is very true. That is the kind of thing that you're trying to get. You're trying to get attention, convert it into interest, and get those people to stay after they discover you and after you build some awareness and such. So yeah, Alex, any extra thoughts? Because before we go into the question that is probably going to have you talking for most of the time.
Yeah, you might get sick of me after that, but I agree, especially with Cult of the Lamb. That is a very unique game in what it is. So going back to how to get people to Steam, your consumer base is a lot smarter than you may give it credit for as well. You don't have to put CTAs, call to actions, on every single post that you do. It may actually come across as pushy or as like a sales technique. So you want to be more organic, you want to be more approachable. But yeah, people are smart. People, if they really like the look of your game, they will go and follow you, or they will look you up on Steam, look up your game on Steam. And Cult of the Lamb had such this unique take, because the developer Massive Monster, their first game was Adventure Powers, and it was very cute, very colorful, but there was nothing too special about it. And then it did okay, but then they thought marketing first, and that's the big thing. If you think about marketing from the very, very beginning and about what you want to make unique about your game, the sheer shock and juxtaposition of Cult of the Lamb's art style and setting is enough for people to take a double look. So people will naturally want to know more if your game is visually appealing or has an obvious hook. So I hate to sound like a broken record, but it does come back to building that solid foundation. And one of the worst things I hear is when I talk to a developer and they say, "We're not ready to think about marketing yet." It is I know I was going to get that reaction, because like, we're not ready to think about marketing. If you say that, you're already late to the game. You need to think about marketing before, at the very start.
Well, there was Kevin Wu, one of my guests for the show, and we were talking about game marketing at some point during the episode, and he said, "My biggest realization is that I should have started with marketing yesterday." So I mean, yeah, it's and he hadn't really started. I mean, it was just starting when we were talking. It was just looking into Kickstarter and all those options, but there is it's never too early to start working towards your marketing. I think the sooner you start and the sooner you develop those things in tandem, better you're going to be. And actually, as Maren said, it's begged you to go and look into the marketing funnel. I'm begging you to go to the GDC talk with Jared J. Tan, again, community strategist of Devolver Digital, because he did break down the Cult of the Lamb case study, and that is very, very, very useful for anyone wanting to build an audience online around their game. But moving on, and conscious of time, the question I have right now, and that comes from VCD and Reign of Rain, which I think is a very smart name. The question I would have right now would be how to engage in high-reach marketing / PR with zero or very limited budget. Again, go see the case study from Cold of the Lamb, because of course they have Devolver Digital support, but Jared admitted that most of their engagement was organic, and most of what they did was organic. They didn't have any paid ads and such, and they still managed to explode. Again, Devolver helped a lot, but they also knew what they were doing online and on social, and they knew how to leverage assets and such. I guess we can start with Alex, move on to Maren, and maybe go to Jacky for this one.
Alex is going to take all this time, and you know it.
Just
let it happen. Give it to him.
I love that Jacky leaned in and is like, go on. Where to start? PR it's huge. It's very time consuming. It involves doing your research, finding email addresses, finding the right content creators and the right press. And then it's also like my strategy, because I see a lot of PR agencies, gaming PR agencies, regular PR agencies, and they always say like, oh, we have X thousand, contacts, like 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. But like, I look at that and yeah, that's a big number, but I question what's the quality of that contact list. Yeah, you might have 10,000, but you might only have a 5, 10, 15% open rate. They're not engaged. They might have a high open rate, but a very low click-through rate, meaning that they're opening the emails, but they're skimming them and then moving on. There's so much to talk about when it comes to PR marketing, but you can do it on a zero budget. It just takes time, commitment, listening to your audience, respecting their time, like I said before, making things easy. So the email, it needs to be structured in a very specific way that is not too much at once. You're not throwing links at them everywhere. It's very well structured. I feel like I've gone on a massive tangent, and I don't really know how to bring it back.
I think you touched upon something that hadn't come up yet, which is the importance of data in marketing and looking at your analytics, looking at what's happening. Like as you mentioned, you may have a very low open rate or a very high open rate with a low click-through rate, which means you should always be mindful of what's resonating with your audience. It's test and learn. That's what we always recommend at work, where I come from too. See what works, see what's resonating, and then replicate. And then iterate on that kind of thing, on those kinds of things that are working. Yeah. And then you will find yourself in a good place at some point. And that's how you build organic content without spending a single cent. The Indie Diarist grew to 1,800 followers on Twitter just yesterday. And no, well, I mean, I didn't want an applause from the room, but what I want to say is that it's all organic. I haven't spent one penny for it, apart from maybe software like Riverside, like where we are now. But that's aside from marketing. It's not something. Well, it is something that indirectly affects my marketing, but it's not something that I spent specifically in terms of marketing budget, or that I allocated for marketing budget. I'm on zero budget, and it's worked so far. If I can do it, and I've just started this year, you can do it too, I believe. So yeah, but thoughts from the rest of the room on this?
If I can go a little, I'm so sorry. I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I do love this topic.
Just take it.
But you do.
But I do want to a little bit.
Just let it happen. I don't know anything about PR. Is so far removed from everything that I understand. Like, yeah.
Going back to the whole numbers thing, try not to get too bogged down with your follower counts and everything as well, because again, someone could have 5,000. Yeah, exactly. Someone could have 100, 200,000 followers, but they only play Minecraft or they only play Call of Duty. Mm-hmm. Like that's if you're making, I don't know, like a wholesome farming sim, that's not your target audience. So you might find someone who has 3,000 followers, but they have that wholesome spiel to their channel that could be much more valuable to you. I'll stop talking now because I think other people might have other things to say.
Yeah. So my first counter question almost would be what is high reach, right? How many people do you need to reach to reach your goal, right? So it's also a lot about goal setting. And do you only want to show people, a post once? Do you only want to be mentioned twice? Because you have typically multiple touch points where you want to reach out to someone and have that conversation, not just one time. Oftentimes it's kind of like equated to going on a date with someone, and you're not asking a person to marry them immediately, right? So there is a bit of a longer commitment you have to take in these kinds of things. So, but to answer maybe the question in a bit more detail, I feel like high reach marketing in that sense is sometimes limited or requires some form of budget, like at least, I mean, like your own time also kind of has a cost. So it's
Time is
not
money.
you just committing a lot. Yes, you're committing a lot of time doesn't necessarily mean it comes at no cost, right? So you can always start by leveraging your social media platforms and creating engaging content, of course. But also don't underestimate the power of just grassroots marketing, like word of mouth recommendations that can be incredibly powerful. Also, local press, bloggers, content creators who just may be interested in covering your game. We always tell our devs that are working with us to start just with creating a press kit. And there are some tricks that you can do to have a higher chance in getting covered by press. And that could be to have multiple formats of screenshots, typically landscape formats and other formats. But landscape format is really great, for example, for things like banners. So the more refined your press kit is, the easier you will have it to have someone cover you.
And I like what you said there about goal setting. I think understanding your goals and your objectives is a key part of your marketing strategy, whether it's just more specifically social or it's something else that embraces your whole approach to marketing your game. You have to a very clear objective in mind, which could be number of wish lists, it could be even be number of followers, depending on what you want to do with your social channels and such, number of sales, and you do everything to work towards that objective, and you keep that front of mind at all times. I think that is a good way to start, if anything, and you can start, as Alex said and as everybody said on this call already, start laying down the foundations from there, from understanding what you want to achieve. And there's something that we could give you some tips to refine, but ultimately it should be something that comes from you, something that you understand, and that is going to work for your game and for your specific case and what success looks like to you. Yeah,
Jacky, I love what you said about leveraging your followers as well, because like everyone and their grandmother has a Twitch account now, and everyone loves streaming and whatnot. So you can find all of your most dedicated fans and your content creators through your follower list. Like there will be so many there. You can start there. Even people you meet at like at PAX or trade events and everything, because they're along with the journey. They've already jumped on that train. So if they've been engaging with you for about a year now, and then you're about to drop a demo, or you're even about to release, they've got nostalgia is a very powerful thing. So they can go back to that time that, yeah, I remember I commented on a post from this developer and they were very nice and we had a great conversation, and now their game's coming out. Yeah, I'd love to check that out because you've built that relationship.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, so rest assured, I am cutting questions as we go, because I know that we will be here again for hours otherwise. But I think this is a very important one, and I'd like to start with Maren, who I think may know
at least give me the
yeah?
question first. I gotta think.
Oh no,
man.
no. Well, what are some, and you can talk about this in the context of social, which could be your specialism. Sure. What are marketing strategies that you believe don't get covered often enough or at all, why are they valuable? And if you have any specific examples of maybe other indie games who have done it well, then feel free to share. If it makes you feel a bit more strongly about to reframe this question, are there strategies that are detrimental instead?
Listen, this is only going to be an hour long. I don't have time to rant about Wishlist Wednesday and Screenshot Saturday. Instead, let's focus on, kind of some of the positive aspects, some strategies that you can adopt and some tactics. And maybe I'll cast a little bit wider net and talk about best practices. I really, really like that Alex and Jacky both brought up data analytics, because as much as the squishy community part is fabulous and so much fun and changes your life, right, and shapes you as a human being, data analytics turn me into a freak. Like sitting down, okay, hear me out though. Hear me out. Social media.
Here we go.
Okay. Social media is a machine. It's not a reflection of you or how good you are as a person. It's not even an accurate reflection of your game or how good your game is. It's a machine. So when you begin to feed the machine, you need to be prepared to see what comes out of it. Okay. Make yourself comfortable with data analytics. Prepare yourself for social media audits. Okay. Audit is a scary word. All I'm asking you to do is like sit down once a month and like find your best performing post or your 5 best performing posts. Then sit down and rewrite those like 20 new ways. Anything else that didn't perform, like you fed it into the machine and the machine pooped it out on the floor, throw it straight in the trash. Like forget that you ever had that thought. Kill your darlings. Like never go back to it. It's dead to you. No longer family. Okay.
The imagery coming from this is
I mean, I'm right. Okay. Do you agree? I mean,
extract this clip and just share it as it is, and be like, "Oh my god, what have they talked about during this panel?"
Okay, data analytics, though, right? I mean, come on, sitting down and actually seeing the fruits of your labor, right, expressed as numbers, whether it's reach or whether it's click-through rate to your wish list, whether it's website visits, whether it's you see a little uptick on your Kickstarter campaign. If you're able to track that back, and you are, spoiler alert, if you look, you can find it. It's right there. If you're able to look back and figure out what caused it, do it again. Anything that didn't work, forget it. Instead, start experimenting with new things, right? Anyway, that was like my whole rant. Data analytics and social media audits are underrated, in my opinion. I know it's not super glamorous, but the data is there to help you. You can use it. It's a tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. No, it was absolutely. I second every single word you said. It's something that I'm seeing at work too. Like we always start with an audit. Seeing what worked, what didn't work, and that's the whole reason why in my agency we do reports, like quarterly reports. Of course, you don't have to go that granular because you're not necessarily a huge brand and such, but looking at your data and seeing what worked is going to make a huge difference. I assure you.
You can start with just a simple SWOT analysis. Is a great way to start. So your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Just dot point it. Even that can give you some clarity.
Absolutely. And I forgot to say that this question came from Husen, who's a good friend of mine. We did a game together. And he also left this other question, which I believe I know the answer to, but I'll still give it to the room. Does marketing change for a narrative-driven game like To the Moon versus a mechanical one like Diablo 4? I think it's an interesting question because it shows that, of course, different types of games give you a different mindset when you're kind of approaching marketing. And I would say it does change. It all depends on your strategy and such, but I will leave it to you.
I'd say yes and no. I went first before Jacky, you go.
Yeah, it does change a lot, actually, depending on what type of game you have. Of course, if you have a narrative-driven game where you have spoilers, that if you market them, then that of course leads to eventually no one playing or buying the game, because everyone has like the core thing about your game already spoiled. So narrative-driven games have sometimes like a completely different angle where you almost want to keep it mysterious and don't want to share too much, but still keep people on the edge of their seats. So that can be very tricky. But if you have like more of a mechanical-driven game, where it's all about showing the gameplay and showing, like the power trip that you can get from just simply being immersed in that world, you can drive a drastically different angle, and you can share almost SAP everything about your game, as long as you don't spoil something. That is truly, like a big catch to the story.
I think it comes down to tone of voice too, because if you are doing a narrative-driven game, then you do want to be a bit more evocative in your language. You do want to be a bit more, as you say, Jacky, mysterious, and just try to build that narrative. Whereas maybe if you have a very gameplay, arcadey game, you just want to show all the colors, all the effects on screen, all the gameplay, and how catchy it is. You will attract different audiences depending on what you do, of course, because narrative-driven games, they typically attract people who are interested in story and such, and and arcadey ones may attract a wider pool. But it's just a different approach to marketing one or the other. So yeah.
I think the foundations can be very similar in terms of you want to build the audience, you want to build like make sure you have a solid foundation, make sure you've got a good Steam page and everything like that, and XYZ, like that's all across the board. But yes, definitely in your messaging and how you present your game is different. If I'm to use an example, I was speaking with a developer, and they didn't want to reveal almost anything about their game, to the point where their synopsis was incredibly cryptic. And when they wrote it out, and I played the game, and then I looked at their synopsis, and I'm like, I didn't get that, because you're hiding things from the player, which is fair enough. You want to leave a sense of mystery with your game, and you don't want to spoil everything. But for example, they had halfway through, you get access to a gun, but there's no mention of first person shooting anywhere within the synopsis or anything like that. So some people might not like first person shooters, and they wanted it for the sake of the exploration. So you want to be, make sure you're careful of what you say and what you reveal, but you also don't want to lie to the player, I guess you could say.
I guess sometimes it's not even just about wanting to not spoil things. I've seen this a lot. Like, a lot of people are worried that they will not look professional enough if they don't share assets that are finalized, and that's a problem with brands too. I think there's a fine line there, but honestly, I think people will love it when you show the behind the scenes and all the creativity that went into making that game. So don't be too worried about showing the process, I would say. So that can be interesting.
Yeah, that of course also depends again on, like if you're in a contract where you have to honor an NDA, for example, you cannot just go and, share everything on the web.
Be careful.
That you have partners that you have to hold, like you don't want to break promises or anything like that. So also, ideas are incredibly cheap out there, right? So I can only agree with Alex on this one. I feel like marketing can be, in that sense, very humbling. For example, if you write marketing text, aka like copy, for your Steam page, then you almost want to express yourself so that a person with a 5th-grader education can understand what you're trying to tell them while they're in a rush, maybe. So a lot of developers that I meet are very, like in the nitty-gritty, and in the reality, it's more an exercise on clarity, I want to say, and trying to express your broad concept in just the tiniest amount of words that capture it.
And we're near the end now, because we have just a couple more questions to answer. I'd like to hear from Jacky on this one, because I think you touched upon this a few times. Philip the programmer asks, do you really need an audience to make an audience?
Yeah. Hi, Philip. So to answer your question, no, you don't need a large network to start. In the beginning, I started my social media accounts as a social experiment. I had like almost zero following and simply tested out a few things. And what I can recommend is being in almost like a scientific mindset of, okay, I have this idea over here. Will it resonate with a lot of people? Let me try this out. Okay, this actually didn't work. Why didn't this work? And then you can change the angle on that. And marketing has a lot to do with imagining yourselves in the shoes of somebody else. So it has to do a lot with empathy and focusing on delivering value to someone. So as long as you lead your conversations with value, I want to say it's really quote unquote easy to start building an audience. Growing an audience and then converting an audience is a whole another topic of, like monetization. But if you focus on creating content where people go like, oh, I want to share this beyond this platform. So then we're talking about shareability, then you're in a really good place.
Maren and Alex, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'm 100%. I mean, if you look at yourself and you look at your peers, right? Other solo devs, other small indie studios, if this is your first project, the likelihood that you're starting from zero is very high. Now imagine everyone who is 5 years ahead of you in their journey. Imagine them 5 years ago when they started their first project, when they started from zero, right? Um, so it's that experience is fortunately not unique to you, and that I feel builds a lot of camaraderie with indie devs, right? The fact that you can kind of commiserate over how freaking hard it is to start at zero when you have no idea what you're doing, especially with marketing, especially when it comes to talking to people about your game. So with that in mind, definitely be open to learning and experimenting also from the people around you. I recommend this to my followers and my clients that you should find someone who is a couple years ahead of you in their journey and someone who is just starting, if not right behind you, because it always gives you someone to learn from and someone to teach. And that can give you a lot of perspective, that can really ground you and remind you that this is you got to trust the process.
Yeah, and
Right.
to piggyback on that, don't be afraid to make mistakes because we all do. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. I started my company, the Indie XP, because I literally called it the Indie Experiment. Like it was nothing but an experiment. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I just created.
XP stood for experience.
Everyone does, and I realize what I've done, but I can't change it now. Everyone does.
The rebrand would be excruciating. You can never. You actually need to change it to experience.
Well, my website is all based around, like, I just finished building my website, and it's all based around me being a scientist, even though I hate science. Like, it's weird. But, like, yes, it is the experiment.
Backfired.
Oh, it backfired 100%, but I'm going with it. I'm tunnel vision, I'm going straight. But all in all, what my initial point was that it was just an experiment. I just wanted to see what worked and what didn't work, and that is what your accounts will be as well. It will, like, especially if you're starting from zero, see what works. Like Maren said, look at your posts from a month, from the previous month, and see what was your best performing post and see what wasn't, and then analyze. Try to think about why. Really try to understand why X worked better than Y, because it might be as simple as the post that did really well had a certain showed a certain unique aspect about your game that Y didn't. Things like that. So just do it. Really.
An interesting thing from Lente in chat, my very first post with 0 followers got 1,000 likes. So it's totally possible. Falling is how we learn to walk. Well, Lente, I have to say, though, that your game is super cute and it is super marketable. So I would say it's an outlier. But yes, it is totally possible. Right, so now, last 2 questions, but I guess this is when I can start opening the floor to the chat so that they can start thinking about things that they may want to ask. And we won't have much time to answer a lot of questions, but if you do have some burning questions that you want to ask in the chat right now, I will just highlight them at the end, and we will just spend a couple minutes at the end answering some questions from you live. But before we do that, here's a very, very specific question that I think ties into that 5-grader approach mentality that you mentioned, Jacky. How do you approach non-gamers in your marketing, and how do you overcome the barriers of entry in gaming? Asks Klaus Brussels Sprouts from Reddit.
So I took some time to read through your Reddit post that you put, and I read the context in which he posted this is that he is making he's making a sports game, right? He's making a football game, and
yeah, I should have mentioned the context.
Maybe. This is for listeners too. So his specific question was, I'm making a game about football, so naturally the people who will like my game like football, not video games. And I feel like don't do yourself a disservice by making really quick assumptions about your audience. Instead, what you can do is start with what you know. You know that people who would be interested in a football game like football. Excellent. Brilliant. Whoa. Okay, let's start there. Figure out what else they like. It's probably video games. So the shortest possible answer I have to this question is don't. If you're making a game, don't spend time trying to appeal to non-gamers. Focus on the people who are actually going to play your game. Because again, you don't want to burn out, and you don't want to...
What's happening there, Alex?
It's the problem with living in the. It's the problem with living in the city, and right next to where I am, there's like this. I don't know how to explain it, but basically they do parties like literally right outside my door.
All right, but anyway, sorry for interrupting you, Maren. I thought someone was getting killed.
I heard this sound in the background, and I was like, oh, okay, this is where dead-end marketing campaigns go to die. So, but I mean, seriously though, right? Like, there's a reason that we encourage you to get to know your audience and create player personas and buyer personas. It's because the more that you learn about them, the more comfortable you will feel approaching them and appealing to them and asking more questions and experimenting with, content as well as actual game material that appeals to them. So, don't try to appeal to people who are not going to play your game. It's an uphill battle. It's not going to be a good time.
Great.
Yeah. So what you can do, maybe to give still some actionable steps that you can do, is to think about your onboarding experience to your game, right? And that typically already starts with your discovery story of how people come into the space of your world. And by just simply digging through Steam, I found, for example, that Sims 4, who has a very casual audience, I almost want to say, does so very beautifully by simply highlighting the usage of, like a mouse that has a mouse wheel to a less sophisticated market, right? So we're also then always talking about the sophistication levels of the market that you're trying to enter. How well do people know about what you're trying to build? And the better you do your job in the terms of, okay, how do I bring people into my world and answer their burning questions of, hey, is this for me? How do I get value out of this? The easier you will have it to convert them to eventually buy your game.
Yeah, I'd agree with all those points. And especially you've got to think about, from a non-gamer perspective, what are they going to think of first when they're looking into video games? It comes down to brand salience, and unfortunately those big companies just have all of that. Like, they have a monopoly on that. So if a parent wanted to buy a video game for their child, they'll probably think Mario first. or something along those lines. So it's indie games are not the first thing they're going to think of, and that may change in time. Some games do manage to break through into the non-gamer audience. You can think of titles like Untitled Goose Game.
Love that.
Especially in Australia, Untitled Goose Game and Cult of the Lamb were really big stories because they're both from Australia. So they were all over the news. They were talked about everywhere, and they did manage to break out. But remember, 30, 40, 50 video games launch per day. And those are two examples, and only two examples that I can think of. Maybe Stardew Valley. Maybe that's another one.
There's like 6,000 games that launch on Steam in any given year these days. So, yeah.
Exactly.
That's what we're competing with.
Yeah, so don't, like what Maren said, try not to focus too heavily on trying to convince those who are not interested in, it's not a passion of theirs to begin with. Try to focus on who your target audience is and that's basically it. Don't waste your time.
Don't waste your time, yeah. And here's the last question from the audience before we kind of wrap things up. It's a tricky and dangerous question to ask this panel, but biased question for biased panel. Let's be honest. Do you really need to pay to promote posts / hire some sort of marketing service to have success? What a boy asks.
I love this question. Nope.
The answer is no. I have like the smallest caveat. Small.
Mm-hmm.
As a business owner, it is the responsible thing to do for you to allocate your personal resources as efficiently and responsibly as you can, and that includes delegation. Okay, so if your time is better spent on the game, yes, you do also need to do marketing. However, you need to understand that you have finite resources, and as a business owner, you have to be ready to accept help, and you have to be ready to delegate when it comes to that point. Obviously, no, you don't pay to promote your posts on Twitter. Don't do it. Don't. Like, I promise you, hear me out, okay? Hear me out. I'm sorry. I'm calm.
Okay.
You are a little tiny baby duckling, okay? And you are still following the mama duck. You're not ready to be on a billboard, okay? You don't know what you're doing, and that's okay. It is going to be a lot more productive for you to experiment and get those reps in and practice with your copywriting and practice with your marketing before you go blowing money on posts that are not ready to be spent money on. So you're probably not ready for it yet. And that's okay. Because you can do great things for free. $0 and 0 cents and a lot of time and a lot of sweat.
Yeah, that's the big thing. My answer is no, you don't need us, or similar agencies like us, but you better be prepared to do the hard yards yourself if that's the case. And like Jacky said, and like we were alluding to, like time is money basically. So you better be prepared to know that these marketing takes time. Good marketing takes time. So you're going to, maybe that delays your game by 6 months to a year. Can you afford that financially? Are you in the position to do that? Not everyone has the budget to pay for like marketing agencies, and that's fine too. You might be working on your first game. So in that case, just make sure you watch a GDC talk once or twice a week on marketing. Write notes, get strategies. I understand that everyone has their own strengths and marketing might be boring for you or it's just not your interest, but if it can make or break what you are passionate about, then it is important. Or if you're not willing to put in that effort and you are willing to invest in that financially, then yeah, that's when we do come in handy.
I would even go a step further and say that since marketing is not just the end of the journey, but something you want to think about during the creational process of your game, this is typically when we talk about, is a game marketable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost when we are signing up to be a business owner, which you are by default, you're building a startup when you're signing up to become a studio owner, right? You're also signing up in the fine print that you're also becoming a marketer. And that is beyond the gaming industry, right? That's not just in the gaming industry. So there's this, like little dichotomy, I almost want to say, between a good marketing strategy and a bad marketing strategy, of course. Like the bad ones is where you feel sold to and where it feels kind of icky and bad. And on the other hand, you have the unique position where you know your product the best, right? So you will know how a job well done looks like. At least that's very important in the beginning when you're just building your business, right? Because you will not always have the financial resources if you're not going and apply for grants or doing fundraising, which I hope that you do, that you at least go and apply for grants to at least take some of the pressure out of, trying to deliver all the time. Then is really valuable for you to know about these principles, because then you can ingrain them into your product.
And Zebra Killer in chat says, I want to use that quote word for word to share to others. I suppose they're referring to every single one of you, but I think they sent it when Maren said about delegating in her point. So, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, get it tattooed on your forehead,
right.
coward.
That got intense quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry. It's
that.
It's 1:22 in the morning.
Yeah, it's 1:22 in the morning for you, yeah. So, okay, so basically we're almost done. We just have a couple, literally 2 questions, very short from the audience live. Zebra Killer still asks, what do you guys think about marketing controversy? All press equals good press? Example, Cult of the Lamb saying they're deleting their game because of the Unity thing, then later saying they were joking and they just did it for sales. I mean, I knew they were joking, but it's Cult of the Lamb. But it's how they do things. But what do you guys think?
That depends heavily on your brand, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So if your brand is very family friendly and, like not leaning into, like dark humor, then I would say maybe try not to travel in that direction. If your brand is kind of like Devolver Digital and you're known for calling people out online, then you can get away with a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. You have to establish, if you want to be that, I guess, cheeky about your marketing, yeah, you have to go in that direction and go all in. I don't like that theory or that myth, I guess, of all publicity is good publicity. It's definitely not. A bad review can, really stick, and people's negative, like you could have 10 good reviews and 1 bad review, and that 1 bad review sticks out. That red circle on Metacritic is very powerful.
And did you want to say something more? Okay. Well, you will have to, because the next question is specifically for you.
Who put it in chat?
Lente.
Oh no.
Lente, developer of the boat game, asks a quick question for Maren. I think she mentioned it quickly before. Do hashtags like Screenshot Saturday make a difference in reach engagement? Sometimes I feel those tags clog up the post a little, and I'm curious now if I could just leave them out. Little smiley face with sweat.
Okay. This is my objective, professional, data-based opinion. Don't do it. Right now I'm actually in the middle of researching a lot of indie dev related hashtags, measuring their reach, measuring how many accounts use them, trying to figure out, especially with these latest algorithm changes and the heavy value placed on replies, right? Because these threads are fed with replies. So far, the data is indicating that the fewer the hashtags, the better. In general, I would recommend, if you are using them, The two best times to use them are during a live event, because people are actively searching for content produced from that live event. And if you are going to use hashtags, I, in general, recommend do not use more than two. Any more than two, and it is instantly not stricken, not banished to the Shadowland, but your reach actually goes down after two hashtags. So if you are going to use them, be mindful. Don't use the same ones over and over again. The new X algorithm is more likely to snag you as a bot if you are posting the same hashtags over and over and over again. And we obviously want to avoid that. So use them sparingly and mindfully.
Can I ask though, because social media is like, it is something I do as well, but it's definitely not my biggest strength. Okay. How does that work for other platforms? So Instagram, TikTok, things like that.
Oh, right. Oh, that's actually a very good question. Sorry. I was speaking specifically from the X perspective, from the perspective of recent algorithm changes.
We can call it Twitter on this panel, by the way, because yeah.
Well, okay. I'm trying to be professional and hireable. Okay. So for other platforms, let's say, for example, you're spending more time on TikTok, they're less likely to boost event-related hashtags. Instead, definitely take advantage of any relevant trending hashtags. You may have to scroll quite a bit to find some that are relevant. For TikTok, I would actually do the opposite and pick probably 10 to 12 hashtags that most closely match all of your posts. From that larger group, pick 5 or 6 that match that specific post and use those. So you're in kind of a little bit of rotation, but you're keeping them consistent. And what that does is it teaches the algorithm who to show your stuff to. Whereas on Twitter, it's kind of being punished right now, so you want to be a little more light-handed with them.
Perfect. Well, I guess we're at the end now. Well, we went a bit over, so sorry to you guys for staying, and thank you so much for your time. If there are no more... Lente says, thank you for your thoughts, Maren. Yes, Twitter is what I was asking about, so yeah, your answer seems to have been on point. So there is just one thing that I want to ask you all, just to wrap this up. Well, two, but the second one is not really a question. In one sentence... If someone were to go now on Google or wanted to just start doing marketing seriously now, what is one actionable thing that they can do today?
Search for the term viral loop.
Okay.
Look at the data, and make sure and do an audit of your foundation, like your Steam page, everything. Really analyze your past posts, see what worked, see what didn't. The best way sometimes to look forward is to look back.
I know I was begging you to look up the marketing funnel earlier, but I've actually changed my mind. If you had to look up one thing, look up buyer personas and how to make them.
Perfect. Right. And lastly, guys, well, first of all, thank you so much for your time. It's been a beautiful panel session, whatever we may want to call it. This will be turned into an Indie Diaries episode later on. Where can other people find you? And if they do, what is the best way to support you? We can start with Maren, who's right next to me.
Oh, perfect. So if you want to contact me, if you would like to beat me, if you will, call me, beat me, if you want to reach me. I am most active on Twitter at Maneki Social. You can find me on there. You can send me memes. You can send me questions. My DMs are almost always open. That's the best way to reach me. I am currently building up my website, and that's where you can also look at my premium services, as well as a reading list and resources that I'm starting to compile on there. Best way to reach me is on Twitter.
Over to you, Jack, or Alex. Okay, there you go.
Oh, sorry. I'd probably say the same. Most active on Twitter at the IndieXP or at Alex D Harding, one word. But yeah, I think echoing what Maren was saying as well, in that we send us memes if you want, like send us anything. Like we love speaking with developers. We're gamers just like you, and we just love to chat at the end of the day. So you could also check out my website, theindiexp.com, where you can see as well some of my past work.
Where XP stands for experiment. Let's remember that.
Thank you. Yep, it'll make sense once you get to the website, I promise.
For me, we offer our signature service called the Hero Journey on our website, gentleland.net. It's kind of like the gentleman, but instead of man, the land, the country at the end. And you can also find me on Twitter, the Jacky Martin, as well there. And looking forward to making new connections, meeting you all.
Perfect. And of course, you can find all the links related to the podcast on theindiediaries.com, including links to the Discord where people are listening to this live right now, Patreon, and all those lovely things, including my Twitter or X, if we want to be much complacent today. But thank you so much, everyone. It's been such a lovely chat. I'm sure a lot of people will have found this valuable and will find this valuable as soon as it goes live on my podcast feed. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and let's definitely follow up, or let's meet again. Let's just connect over social. Thank you all from Zebra Killer. A nice rock and roll emoji from Trent, and it was great from QuizScore.
And that, my friends, is a wrap on another episode of the Indie Diaries podcast, a very special one, and honestly, I've been wanting to do something like this, like a marketing panel, for such a long time, and I'm glad that I finally managed to. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much to my amazing guests for being so lovely during the whole duration of the episode. Maren, Jacky, and Alex. I mean, you're just some of the most amazing human beings I've ever met. So thank you for your time and for wanting to be on the show. So if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. You can find it on pretty much every podcasting platform. Please leave a rating, maybe 5 stars if you don't mind, because it pleases the gods of the algorithm. And of course, if you want to follow the show on social media, you can find links on theindiediaries.com. And you can also find links to my Patreon and Ko-fi pages. So in case you want to support the show like my wonderful Patreons, you can do so as well. And about my Patreons, here's another shout out to them. One is Zagini, one is Angelisa, FishBumpDev, and Peleg, who just subscribed today. Thank you for being amazing human beings and for supporting the show with your contribution and with your love every single month. But if you don't want to miss out on the next event that will happen exclusively for my Discord peeps, just head over to theindiediaries.com, still same place. It's a nice repository of links, and you can also join the Discord server by clicking on a link there. Lastly, if you're an indie game developer yourself, please get in touch, because I would love to hear your story and tell it to my wonderful audience here on The Indie Diarist.